American hospitals in every state in this country have become literal killing fields. Under the COVID death protocols that are protected by federal laws, you have no rights. You will be chemically or physically murdered, and your relatives have no law enforcement or other recourse to stop it. And all 535 cockroaches on Capitol Hill have been made aware of the thousands of cases across the United States of hospital-caused murder, and they've done nothing. In fact, they're invested in the drugs and technologies used to murder Americans in our hospitals. Tonight, you will hear the horrific tale of a beloved medical doctor who was murdered right in front of his family through the glass window. A doctor who founded the very hospital that murdered him under these federally protected murder protocols, Baylor Medical Center in Texas. How did the very places that are supposed to help us heal become the killing fields, the gas chambers, the firing squads? And how do we stop this protected, premeditated murder in our hospitals? This is the Dr.Jane Ruby Show, and you're about to enter Truth in Medicine.
Get away from me. Step away from me immediately. Do not touch me. Get off me, motherfucker. Get off me. Get off me. Get off me. Fucking son of a bitch. Get off me. Get off me. Ah! Ah! Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Let me go, you fucking bitch. Ah! Let me go, you're breaking my arm. Resisting. I'm not resisting. Lay flat. Let me go. Get me flat. My arm is injured. I can't turn over. I can't turn over. Turn over. You're hurting me. You're breaking my arm. Ah! Ah! Help me. Help me. Oh my God. You're breaking my arm.
Welcome to the Dr. Jane Ruby Show on this Friday, November 8th, 2024. What you just heard was the frantic voice of someone trying to save her own life in a hospital as she tried to advocate for a loved one trapped in a hospital, tortured and murdered by hospital staff. A woman who was assaulted and physically battered by staff and security inside the ICU of Baylor Medical Center. The protection of these horrific practices at Baylor and many other hospital systems in the United States are fully protected by those in charge, all the way up to the top of the hospital, as you will see tonight. This woman was trying to stop the inhumane and premeditated murder practices that were killing her relative, but she became another target. At hospitals like Baylor Scott and White, part of the Baylor Medical System in Grapevine, Texas, you have no patient rights, and entering a hospital today, for any reason, can land you in permanent isolation, sequestered from your family, who must stand on the other side of the glass barrier, unable to hold you, comfort you, or touch you. They must watch in horror as you are assaulted, physically battered, chemically restrained with things like fentanyl to incapacitate you, drugs like remdesivir to make you sick and destroy your organs, only then to justify placing you on a deadly ventilator, forcing a large tube down your airway, taking over and forcing your own breathing, all in a cold room in the ICU, suffering, gagging, begging God for death, with the added torture of watching your loved ones suffer in horror on the other side of the window. My guest tonight, Andy Kotsanis, and his family lived this horror at Baylor. Its leadership and numerous doctors and nurses completed the murder of his father. And Andy joins me now. And Andy, first I want to thank you for being here tonight. This is a terrible story, and I wanted to help you get it out. This actually happened in March 2021, I believe. Your dad was Dr. Konstantin Kotsanis. He was a beloved otolaryngologist in the community. Not only that, but he was the founder, I understand, of the very hospital that murdered him. Andy, again, thanks for being here tonight. Please, lay out the story for us.
Well, thank you again for having me on your show, Dr. Ruby. It's a pleasure. It's been quite the journey so far with trying to get the word out about what happened to my dad and really putting the pieces together of what COVID is, why this happened. Because, I asked a lot of questions when all of this happened to me. Why? And along the way, I came across many stories like me, almost a Xerox copy, through FOIA requests, through reaching out to other people, through making this website about what happened to me, which, by the way, I'll talk about in a second. It's an executive summary about what happened to me, but the, this big picture of the euthanasia of elderly and disabled people, which at the time I wasn't thinking about this, but that's what this is. And, you know, uh, the permission that I guess the healthcare system's been given by government agencies, government regulatory agencies to do this and implement protocols that end life, okay, for profit.
Right.
And
And we're going to
that
get into the larger picture a little bit later, but take us through it because, assume that the audience has not seen your wonderful website is, I say wonderful because it's so well done in honor of your dad and many other people whose family members have gone through this. It's death@baylor.com, correct? Death.
Yes, ma'am.
Please take us through like your dad, was he ill? How did he get into the hospital? Just give us a little chronology
Well,
first.
yeah, so I call it snowvid because it snowed in 2021 pretty heavily in Texas, and I remember that snowstorm. And within a few weeks after that, around that same time, we all got COVID at the same time, and I'll never forget it. I was out for several days, but my dad, he was out too, and he started to get better, but he kept coughing, and eventually he had a hard time breathing to the point where he had to be on oxygen machines. And
Mm.
we took him to his practice. He had oxygen tanks there, and we began to try to just help him out, give him oxygen, whatever he needed. We tried to just basically get him to pull himself out of it, and he just wouldn't get better. And eventually, he looked at me and he said, "Call an ambulance."
Mm.
I said, okay, okay. So Baylor Scott and White, Grapevine Medical Center was just down the road conveniently located down the road from his practice. And this hospital he's had a relationship with and sent business to the day he was no longer here. So
Mm.
really shocking what happened, the result. But we sent him there and he just went in and he was there for a total of about 6 days and some change. And
And
at first it was like he was okay.
okay.
And then he called me saying, I feel fine, like nothing happened. And a few days later, he was dead.
Wow. Were you immediately separated, you and your mom and the rest of your family separated from being with him and how did he get into the ICU or did he go right into the ICU?
Really, he was there. He was there for, I think they brought him in. He was there for a few hours, and then they checked him in. And I guess they did the whole to test to see if he had COVID. And I know they do that with everyone. But
Sure.
once they determined he had COVID, he was admitted to the ICU.
Oh,
And so within that time, he was, still communicating with me. And then he called me around 3 or 4 in the morning on like a Wednesday or a Tuesday, and he said they're moving me to a step down unit, which at the time I didn't know what that meant.
sure.
That's not. And so he said they're going to do whatever, and I'll call you back. So I said okay, and that was the last time I ever spoke to him alive.
Oh no. Well,
And
that what he was saying was somehow they were going to move him into a less intense care unit, but it's not quite a regular floor. But it's always a good sign because it's less dangerous. But how did he get? Did he go back to ICU? What did you later learn?
Well, what we learned is I don't know if he ever even left the ICU. I just think he was there for the majority of his time. And every day it just took a turn for the worse. It got worse. So eventually we get this call, one from the medical doctor, Dr. Jagadeshwar Reddy, who was the pulmonologist in charge of his case, who said that his heart is at 50% capacity. It's not looking good. We couldn't believe what was happening. So we wanted an audience with my dad. We wanted to see him. And around that time, we also got a call from the nurse Sarah Grice, who killed him. The nurse, she was the one primarily looking after him in the hospital in the ICU. She called my mother saying we had to put your husband in restraints. He was confused why he had tubes in his lungs, so they put tubes in his lungs. They put a subclavian, and I think they just screwed it
Wow,
up.
they
We took
really ramped up and inserted things. And that it sounds to me, Andy, because I'm a medical professional as well, that a lot of serious steps happened without your mom's, without any communication to your mom until it was like closer to the end where they could totally control it. I mean, I'm always
yeah,
conspiratorial about this because there's so much evidence that this was intentional. So maybe they told him he was going to a step down unit just to keep him from resisting anything. That's always,
absolutely.
I don't know what you
Well,
guys.
well, if you look at his chart, at the very beginning of his chart, he says, "Don't incubate me. I don't want to be incubated. Don't put me on a
Ah,
ventilator."
don't be intubated.
But
No ventilator then?
yeah, he was saying it in his own, and it's even in the chart, in their own notes. He said, "I don't want to be ventilated. Don't incubate me." But then a few days later, after this call, the nurse saying she had to put him in restraints. Just a few days later, after meeting with the administrator in person, which by the way I'll talk about in a second,
Sure.
you know, um, he said he wanted to be put on a ventilator and die. So how do you go from I don't want to die, don't put me on a ventilator, to I want to die, put me on a
Okay,
ventilator? It's really
this is a medical doctor who understands that a ventilator is not always life-saving, that it could be dangerous. And without any advocate, family, wife, son, this could be a very dangerous move. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make
it
sense.
doesn't. So what's interesting is since things were taking a turn for the worse, we requested to speak to the hospital administrator. At the time, his name was Chris York, and the
Let's
worst
bring
person I've ever met.
let's bring him up here because there's a lot about him that I want you to tell the audience. By the way, he was at the time, let's be really, this is Chris York, you see here on the screen. At the time that your dad was being assaulted and murdered, Chris York was the president of Baylor Scott and White at Grapevine, Texas, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I understand currently, according to your website, but by the way, deathbybaylor.com or death
Death
at,
at,
I apologize,
yeah.
death
Okay. Death
at
at
Baylor.
Baylor.
A very well done website, I might add. And it's going to be on the screen throughout the show. But he is now the president of Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas. Let's make them famous too, Andy, because they were either criminal enough or stupid enough to, elevate this man. So what is his role in this? Tell us about Chris York.
So, he was the administrator, and this is just the most bizarre thing. When we went to try and have a dialogue with the administration of this hospital because we were not able to communicate directly with my dad, things were not looking good. So when we requested to speak to him, he came into the downstairs to the lobby with some of his people, and I said, I don't know why you guys aren't letting me see my dad. I think it's criminal. He said, well, if you think it's a crime, call the police.
Wow.
I couldn't. So, and then he turned around, walked away very arrogantly. And, and that was that. And I should have called the police. I didn't know what to think at the time. I was blown away by hearing that. And just a few days later, this really scary call we got from Sarah Grice, this nurse, the nurse taking care of my dad. She called my mother saying, again, you know, uh, my dad wanted to die and be put on a ventilator. So we ran to the hospital. We had our attorney conveniently with us at the time. We
Mhm.
ran to Grapevine Medical Center, and there we were with my attorney, and we were greeted by a guard and a nurse, and they just wouldn't let us pass the front door. And
Mm.
eventually, they decided to let my mother up, and they didn't make her wear extra protection, nothing. They just let her up. And while she was talking upstairs to my father, trying to figure out what's going on, Dr. Reddy came downstairs to me with he didn't even have a face mask on. He was shaking like a leaf, and he looked at me and he said, I talked to your mom. My hands are tied. There's nothing I can do. That was my father's prognosis.
Okay.
His first name is Jagadeshwar. Gummy is his middle name. Reddy. So Dr. Jagadeshwar Reddy is his
Okay.
name. And
Here he is.
I'm
Yep.
really, I can't believe like you're a medical doctor and you're making decisions on someone's life. I mean, you went to school half your life and this is your answer, you know.
Right.
And my father would have never said that to someone. My hands are tied. Are you kidding me? I mean, you're the one ultimately making decisions because that's what you are. You're a medical doctor. And, I just couldn't believe how who would employ this. And speaking of that, speaking of employment, all he cared about was his job. He was so I could lose my job and I couldn't believe it. Just what about my dad?
Dr. Gumi,
I
yeah, it doesn't matter that your dad's, going to be murdered, and my hands are tied on that. But it's really, I just want to pause for a minute, Andy, because, my audience has heard many of these tragic stories. But nevertheless, we all still have a hard time understanding how, as I said in the intro, how people who were trained, who went into this profession, doctors and nurses, how did they get to a point? What's your theory on how they got to a place where they're knowingly, this is their expertise and wheelhouse, they know they're killing people?
I think they're blinded by the greed factor. Unfortunately, Alexander Hamilton said it best. People are motivated by self-economic interest, and that's basically this times to the hundredth power. This gets in their head. They think the PrEP Act's there. The police are there to protect me,
Right.
and I'm
And they've seen
bonus
it.
money for this
And they've
this
seen it, the
financial.
protection. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the protection, but the financial incentive. But what blows my mind is even though there's incentive financially, the fact you're still just doing it and ruining other people's life, world, and ending their life, their loved one's life.
Yeah.
And in this case, with us, the aftermath, not just to me, but everyone they did this to, the aftermath of how horrific it was. And so, anyways, to continue
Sure.
my story. So here I am. Here we are. I'm looking at this doctor. So he goes back upstairs. My mother comes back down devastated by how the nurses treated her. And less than 24 hours later of putting my dad on a ventilator, they called us around 5 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, and they said my father was coding, and
Ah,
the president called and said, oh, one of us can go in the room and say bye, which is why we decided that's why we even showed up at the hospital in the first place.
okay, let's pause for a minute on that one because you have an astounding brief video, audio rather, capture of that phone call. It's not Nurse Grice, right? We're going to get to her in a minute and make her famous. It was another nurse or somebody at the desk or somebody who called your mom and said, and I want the audience to hear this tape, Andy, because this person called your mom, left a voicemail so nonchalantly. We're coding your husband. So can we play that right now?
Yeah, please. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah.
let's play that.
Good morning, Beverly Kotsanis. My name is Lillian calling from Baylor Graven ICU. I'm calling to let you know that we are coding your husband right now. If you could please call us back on 817-329-2528. Again, the number is 817-329-2528. Thank you.
Okay. Andy, what blows me away, as I said, just, yeah, your husband's coding. Give us a call. Give us a call. Like he's eating pudding. He's finally eating his pudding. Unbelievable. And so did your mom call back at that point?
Well, yeah, so
You just
we
ran to
did.
the hospital?
Oh, so yeah, so we called back, so we're on our way. And
Wow.
as we arrived, we were greeted by an officer, Demorius Jones, and an older nurse by the name of Donna. And she had Chris York on the cell phone, still on the phone. And he said he called again, and he said, none of you can go in the room. You have to watch him die through glass. And I was so upset. I was like, why? I don't understand.
Andy,
So
did
this
he actually
policeman,
say that you could hear you'll have to watch him die behind the glass?
no, she had the phone up here. I don't think she had a speakerphone, but he was on the phone with her, and he was just doing this to her, and he was instructing
Wow.
basically.
Wow, wow,
And it
wow.
was so I was really amazed and really upset. So
Wow.
this policeman and this nurse escorted us to the ICU, and there was a man by the name of Eric Cortez, a volunteer, part of the ministry, I guess. He was a minister of some kind. I thought it was so weird how there was someone like that there at 5 in the morning greeting us to comfort us or whatever. And, he was a witness to this. So there's a lot of people, there were like 15, 20 people in that ICU when it happened. A lot of people, a lot of witnesses. So this guy greets us and as he's opening the door to get us in the ICU, he looks at me and says, your dad's a real fighter. What was he fighting for? His life. That's what he was fighting for. So we go there, and there's Sarah Grice behind the door, and she's just waiting there, holding her hands up like this. And then, I look at my dad, and he's just laying there, and I look at the heart monitor. I've seen I know heart monitors. He had a pulse of 122. I'm like, well, I thought he was coding. I didn't understand what was happening. And then Ramel Antango, who at the time didn't want to, no one had any name tags on. No one would tell me
Oh,
their name.
interesting. Hmm.
The policeman wouldn't tell me his name. The Ramel Antando, the nurse practitioner taking care of my dad, he passed off this syringe full of something to Sarah Grice. She injects my dad with it in his IV bag. His pulse begins to rapidly drop, and then with all of her strength and might began to brutally and violently end his life in front of us. And what's interesting is he had a blanket up to his neck. His whole body was covered in a blanket. He had his eyes covered with cotton. He had the ventilator still in his mouth. And as violently as his body was bouncing off the table, he was in restraints.
Oh
He
my God.
was. So this nurse was, in my opinion, not trying to save his life, end his life. And my question I ask all the time is, why did they wait to do it in front of us if he was really in trouble?
All right, let's talk
So,
about this guy, Ramel Lantaho, Lantejo,
Montajo,
Lantajo,
Montajo.
APRN, DNP. What's the DNP?
I don't know what that's a designation I saw.
Doctor of
Yeah,
Nursing Practice or something. So he was basically a nurse practitioner in terms of his medical expertise, which is right up there with a physician. They practice medicine in a limited specialty. And we're looking at this document. I know you have FOIA revelations. You filed FOIA documents. You're really well on your way. I don't want to forget to mention, we have this up here with his picture, Lantajo's picture in this document. But before you get into this, I want to make mention that you need to speak with another gentleman who is in this fight, Scott Shera, who watched his daughter Grace, 19-year-old daughter, die on FaceTime because the other daughter was in the room, and the murdering doctors and nurses were so busy trying to, restrain her and kill her with, injecting her with all kinds of drugs, that he, and unfortunately his wife Cindy had to watch Grace die. Every bit as horrific as what you and your family went through. You need to contact. I'm going to put you guys together because he actually has
Please
a
do.
trial. He's made it through all the motions to dismiss to a trial. He's going about it in terms of assault and battery, and these are crimes that cannot be protected by the PREP Act. So this is why. And as we're going to talk about in the second half of the show tonight, you have made much broader connections to the Great Reset, to the eugenics issues. This is exactly where Scott's journey took him. So this is a powerhouse combination. We'll talk about that later in the second half. But fill us in here. We've got this picture of Ramel Lantajo, this nurse practitioner. What is the document that you have? This is from death@baylor.com. What is the document? Tell us about that.
So this is a restraint. The document says restraint-related death. He is the author of this document, Ramel Antajo.
Wow.
So he had this thing ready to go right after they ended my father's life in front of my mother. After I was escorted out of the ICU, the final moments of Sarah Grice ending my mother's life, my mother was screaming, "Stop, stop." So my father seizured, his body seizured, and then he finally died. And that was it. And right moments after that, Ramel Antajo asked my mother to sign this document, already ready to go. All they wanted to know is where to send the body. Okay. But it reads restraint-related death. Patient did not die in restraints. Of course he did. He did. And that also was marked no autopsy. It's industry standard to always do an autopsy whenever there's a mysterious death or restraint-related, in this case, restraint-related death. You should always do an autopsy. It is industry standard.
So
But that's not what they did.
he checked no. And also, so this is like a pre-death certificate type thing, information for the death certificate?
Yeah, see, because all they wanted to know is where to send the body. So this is, I guess, part of, and I guess in the state of
So
Texas,
when it's said that he died, no to restraints, which you can clearly see the restraints in the picture that you snapped with Grice in the room, Nurse Grice. We're going to get to her in a minute. Did your mom know she was signing? Oh, I'm sure it was a very
she didn't
distressed.
know, she didn't know what she was signing at the time.
Of
She
course
was, they
not.
just wanted to know, and that was it. And that was that. And then they sent my mother and my sister on their way out the hospital, and they had no idea what she just signed. But they just sneaked it in there at the very end. So Ramel Tahoe is guilty of first degree murder, conspiracy to cover up murder, medical abuse, elder battery. They all are. All of these people.
Yes, they are.
There's so many charges that I should try to bring on them, but.
Oh,
Um,
well, you might be doing that. You need to talk to Scott Shera and his lawyers because it's almost a similar case. And if you can go around, you're legally going around the PrEP Act. This is huge, and this could be a big. These are things that would stop this kind of activity in its tracks. Because
well,
if nurses and
what's amazing?
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I
I'm
was going to
sorry.
say if nurses and doctors know they can be nailed, like you said earlier in the show, they might not be incentivized to be murderers, but please.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. So, I went to the Grapevine police and tried to file police charges. They said call the Texas Rangers, call the DA. So I called the Texas Rangers. I called the DA. When they called me back, they said, uh, call Baylor police. I called Baylor police. They said call our legal department. So this is a huge cover up. When I reported the nurses to the Texas Board of Nursing, they finally wrote back to me saying these nurses are not in violation of the Nursing Practices Act, and we took the records and we destroyed them. And I have that in writing, by the way. So they destroyed the records. Uh,
Oh, oh,
yeah, which is
Andy,
you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that.
not at all. And what is the parent corporation? Is it Baylor Medical Center dot? I mean, Inc. What is the parent of the
Baylor
system?
Scott and White.
It is
Just
Baylor's.
Baylor Scott and
Okay.
White. Yeah, Baylor Scott and White is the mothership, and Baylor Scott and White Grapevine Medical Center is where this happened.
Yeah.
And it used to be called Grapevine Medical Center long before it was ever even called Baylor, and that's how long my dad was there. He was there since 1984, so
Okay.
he helped
So
build it.
so this Chris York who went to Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, is that under the umbrella of Baylor Scott and White system?
It is. It is not. Texas Health is its own company. Now, I
Okay.
wrote to Texas Health leadership, Barclay Burdan, who's the CEO
Yeah, you
of
got a murderer in your employ.
and and I've made posts tagging Texas Health. They're ignoring it. They don't care.
All right.
So Texas Health is just as bad as Baylor Scott and White. Texas Health could care less about human life, in my opinion. And same with Baylor Scott and White. It's all about the money with these people,
Right.
obviously.
Let's just to finish up on Chris York, because I want to make sure people understand who he is. He's the one that said, we have this other photo. If you think it's a crime, call the police. He sets the administrative standard for Grapevine, Baylor, Scott, and White, or he did before he went to Texas Presbyterian. And he's the one who, famously said, call the police if you don't like what I do. Wow. And this is his standard so beware, our friends in Texas, that if you go into this hospital, either of those two hospital systems, you've got the stench of Chris York, who is really sanctioned the murder of Dr. Kotsanis, as well as so many other innocent people. I want to go, before we take a break, Andy, I want to go to Sarah Grice. This is a registered nurse who not only is enabling the hospital CDC death protocols. She's a conspirator in committing premeditated murder. She currently is a registered nurse, as far as we know. There's a montage of pictures of her that you have on her website. And she looks all nice and, sweet. She's got a sister or a friend there with the dog, probably treating the dog better than she treats patients. She apparently likes horses, but she murders human beings. Is she still an RN at Baylor Grapevine?
No, so this is crazy. Right after she did what she did, she got in her car and she ran to her car. She got in her car and drove away like a bandit, robbing a bank. Couldn't believe it. And then that was the last time I ever saw her. And then as I started to research what happened to this nurse, she now lives in Vandalia, Ohio, with her parents, which is a population of about 50,000 people. And her mother, Patricia Grice, who was a well-known doctor, closed her office in 2021, which I think is interesting. But
Wow.
yeah, and out in the Dayton, Ohio area, and she's no longer. She actually let her license lapse in the state of Texas. She didn't even try to renew it. Um, in my opinion, I don't think she's probably a practicing nurse right now. She may be, but when I tried to report her to the Ohio Nursing Board, they haven't even reached out to me. It's like they're ignoring it.
Did
So
you
this is
did you report it?
I reported her to the Ohio Nursing Board, and they never said anything. When I call about it, they won't even call me back. So there's something going on here. This
Well,
is really
you've got to get a private investigator to find out if she's practicing anywhere in Ohio, because she is a risk to murder other people. And remember, just because they're not in a hospital system, she's a known murderer now. But just because they don't work in a hospital, she could be doing private care on her own through an agency. She could be in a nursing home murdering elderly people. This is really dangerous. So I'm keeping her face on here for a long amount of time, and anything else you want to add about her, because this woman is dangerous. She's already murdered Dr. Kotsanis right before her family's eyes. And she could be very easily hurting people in a private nursing capacity.
Yeah, and the thing that people need to also know is that this particular hospital, when I started doing FOIA requests and I started getting public about my website, to make the story even more interesting, Chris York discreetly sold his house in December of 2021 and moved to Arkansas. And when I told Arkansas what he did, he's now back here, trying to still ignore me, act like it never happened. But through these requests and through people that reaching out to me on my website, I learned how bad, and you heard through that recording that woman being assaulted. This happened to hundreds of people, if not, I don't know, maybe even 1,000 people in this community that I live in. But I'm gonna guess, just guessing, it's well over 100 bodies that a team of maybe 20 people murdered in this hospital. Is for how I feel about this. I could be wrong, but that's definitely, and these nurses are still at large. There's another nurse, Victoria Caroline Tolbert. She's with Texas Health now.
Okay, spell
She's a
that name. Spell that name, because we don't have her picture.
Victoria Caroline Tolbert. I do have her picture. I'll be publishing it soon.
Okay,
But
do you want to break that picture on the show tonight?
I don't have it handy right now.
Okay, no,
But
I mean, we can add it in
later, yeah, absolutely, I
in
can
the
email
show.
it to you.
Okay, so it's Victoria. Let's go slow. Victoria Caroline. What's her last name?
Tolbert, Tolbert, I believe is how you
And what
spell
was
it.
Victoria Caroline Tolberg role in your father's murder?
So she was she was a accessory. She was there participating, and she aided Sarah Grice. And if you look in the chart, she was there helping with all that was happening to him, administering the remdesivir, things like that. And she was an accomplice to this. And she was very cruel to my mother too, very nasty to her when my mom was upstairs trying to get resolution with my father. So
I,
she was she aided these nurses.
I want
So
to. I
she's
want
still
to.
at large. I'm sorry.
I want to remind the public that what Andy and his family went through is it in the moment. You don't even believe what you're seeing, and you're upset because your primary goal is to advocate for your loved one. But I was taught a long time ago. I wrote a book called A Sea of New Media. You are the media now. Don't be intimidated. You have most people have their phones with them, even older folks now. Record, record, record. And you guys did a lot of great stuff, Andy. You got great pictures. You've got, I don't know what else you've got. Don't say it if it's going to jeopardize any future cases. I want to protect all these cases, but I can't emphasize on the public enough. Always have your phone ready to go. Always have it. Now, Andy, one quick thing. In your FOIA, although you don't need a FOIA to get a copy of your loved one's medical records, if you're power of attorney and all that, but do you have your dad's complete medical records, and or was there anything else from your FOIA request that you did get that you can talk about?
Absolutely. So the medical records is about 1,000 pages. A lot of the pages are duplicates. And it's interesting, there's nowhere in the chart It talks about, and except for that one page about restraints, it's always industry standard. Every 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, you should be documenting when someone's in restraints. We did this, we did that. None of that. No, I couldn't find any of that. Thought that was interesting. I did find a document about being filmed, though. Sarah Grice had signed the day before she did what she did, which I thought was weird because I tried to film some of this. And so I thought that was interesting. She said my mother gave her permission. We never gave her permission for that. So very, very strange. That's very strange. But also through my FOIA requests, I'll tell you what I found. So I did a FOIA request with the Grapevine Police Department about how many times the police were called to Grapevine, Baylor from March 2020 to June 2024. And after looking through the spreadsheet that they sent me through an email, there were a total of 528 phone calls in the past 3.5 years, and 389 calls stood out. 70 welfare checks, 78 disturbance calls, 13 assault reports, 16 labeled special assignment calls. 86 of these calls are labeled special investigation, and 44 calls are labeled complaints. And when I started to do another more digging in the FOIA requests about the welfare checks, because I thought that was interesting, the city attorney of Grapevine sent me a letter saying we're writing to the Attorney General of Texas to uh, not allow you to get access to this information, basically. So I waited and I
Wow.
waited. It was really, yeah. So then the Attorney General wrote to the city of Grapevine saying you can withhold only 3 things because it's involving some minors. Yeah, I don't know, like just redact the names and the age. Who cares? But
Okay.
so anyways, the rest you have to give Mr. Kotsanis. According to the Attorney General, you
And
have to.
this is
But
Ken Paxton?
Ken Paxton.
Okay, your Texas
So he
Attorney
writes,
General?
so he writes back to the city attorney saying, you got to give Mr. K this, Mr. Kotsanis this. So when I reached out to the city attorney, they said, we're not going to give you anything. There's nothing for us to give. So they're refusing to give me, even though they're supposed to, they're refusing to give me
Mm,
the welfare checks. So this tells
mm,
me
they didn't
that
do
there's a
them.
relation. They didn't do them.
They didn't do them, or right?
I
Or
think,
they were checks and he wasn't doing well and they recorded it and they don't want you to see him degrading.
yeah, they don't. Well, it's not just about my father. We're talking about 70 different welfare checks, 70
Okay.
different people.
Okay. Wow.
So, so what this tells me is there's a relationship the city or the Grapevine Police has with Grapevine Baylor Scott White, because when I started putting signs out about my website, Grapevine Police knocked on my door telling me, be careful where you put your signs. Your First Amendment rights are limited. The man's name was Sam Shemwell. He was the head police detective at the Grapevine Police Department. And now, when I did on the spreadsheet that I should print it out, when I started looking through the names of the officers going to these disturbance calls, a lot of his name popped up a bunch. So
Oh.
there's definitely a relationship
Yeah,
with this police.
what did he mean your First Amendment rights are limited? I've never heard that.
I never heard that. I was like, whatever, buddy. So
They
I
make up,
did.
the criminals make up are guarding the hen house and they're making up the rules as they go along, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
and then he said, you don't have to talk to us again if you don't want to. And then he just drove away. I'm like, what was the point of
Insane,
this? So,
insane.
yeah.
Before we go to break, and I want to go to break pretty quickly. I wanted you to just fill us in briefly, if you could. What steps are you, if any, are you taking legally? Have you filed anything publicly that you can talk about to get some retribution for your dad?
I mean, really, it's hard in the state of Texas to sue for this. Really, it is. And my attorney and I decided to just be very public about what happened and expose what happened and hold them publicly accountable. That's really the best approach right now, with the
Okay.
way the laws
Okay,
are.
because I want you to know that Scott Shera is in, I believe it's Wisconsin. It's St. Elizabeth's hospital system. And I think there could be a good connection here because he has found the way to go around these limitations. I understand what you're saying when you say it's hard to get compensation or justice in your state, but you might be going down a path that if you see if Scott's lawyers or something share, because I'll tell you something, if you hit Sarah Grice, RN, and Chris York, and this doctor, I want to say his name, Andy, because it's important. Jagadeshwar Gumi Reddy, MD, and anybody else who is involved in your dad's murder with subpoenas. Oh, let's not forget nurse practitioner Ramel Tahoe hit them with depositions. You don't need law enforcement. You don't need a DA. You can do your lawyer can do depositions. I don't know. Did you know that?
I know, but he just I'm having a hard time getting him to do it.
Maybe you
So
need a new lawyer.
maybe you need a new
Sorry,
attorney.
but this is where maybe Scott Shera, I know, is a great human being and a beautiful Christian man. He wouldn't think twice about sharing his information with you in terms of the model he's using. And if your lawyer is holding you back, that's a red flag. Now,
Well,
maybe
what's weird to me is, I'm sorry,
sure.
what's weird to me is you know, I'm past my statute of limitations for wrongful death. So I don't know if any lawyer would even want to touch this, but I'm just trying to get murder charges.
Yeah, there's
I mean,
no statute of limitations on murder.
no. And so I just don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
what do you do? Well, if the police don't want to do anything,
yeah.
my lawyer is like, whatever. So
Hold
what do you
on, my
do?
friend. This is why God put me in this situation, because I have these other things that I can see and bring together, and I just see I see a great thing happening here on behalf of your dad. Okay, let's take a quick break. When we return, we're going to hear more about what Andy found, just like Scott Shera, on what Andy found on his journey. Took him far beyond just his father's murder, assault and battery and then murder. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just a few minutes to hear more about that. And you won't believe some of the things he's uncovered. Be right back.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98, or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Do you know what my saving secret is? Well, I discovered how gold acts as a hedge during unprecedented economic times. I also learned how important it is to diversify my retirement savings, and there's a great way to do it. But you need the education to be a smart consumer of physical gold and silver. When you contact my partners at Augusta Precious Metals, the first thing they will do is set you up with a free personal webinar. Do you know what a spread is and how it can save you or cost you a lot of money in the long run? I didn't, but I surely understood the gold and silver investment process as well as the spread at the end of my 30-minute webinar. You won't even talk to a sales professional until you've met with a qualified education trainer to help you understand how gold and silver transactions work. Augusta Precious Metals has a 10-step buying system, and your brief 30-minute webinar will prepare you to decide, first of all, if gold and silver is right for you. What's the right amount or portion of your retirement savings that you should put into the metals? And they have a great aftercare department, so expect a long-term relationship. Call Augusta today at 888-836-1890 or click on the link below to schedule your free webinar today. Sir, Dr.Jane Ruby, resident of Palm Beach County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before all of you today. I'm a medical professional who is now part of the independent media in the United States. I am a licensed nurse practitioner, internal medicine, subspecialty cardiology. I'm a graduate of the University of Rochester with 2 earned doctorates and 2 master's degrees in nursing and the other in international pharmacoeconomics and health economics. I'm a former nursing professor and taught nursing undergraduate and graduate nursing at the university levels. I also spent 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry and medical research. Before 2020, I never saw the degree of neglect, subrogation of patient rights, and out assault on human beings that have been reported by patients in your hospital and countless other hospitals in the United States. Sarasota Memorial Hospital is the poster child for the killing fields American hospitals have become.
Ms. Ruby, you are on dangerous ground.
Today, I am speaking for the hundreds of families that stand behind me, that have written to me or appeared on my show to tell their stories of their loved ones, their last days in this and other hospitals. Well, what you just heard was my own personal testimony before the publicly elected board of directors at Sarasota Memorial Hospital in February 2023, warning them that the public would not continue to tolerate hospital-protected murders. Well, welcome back to the second half of the Dr. Jane Ruby Show tonight. I'm here with Andy Kotsanis from the former Feds Freedom Foundation and his own website, deathatbaylor.com, where he's been warning and educating people across our nation of the dangers of the killing fields American hospitals have become. And it never ceases to blow my mind that people who are trained to help others heal have actually become premeditated, unfettered, out-and-out murderers. Andy, where is the conscience of the American healthcare worker?
It really is amazing. I don't know. We're going through some type of metamorphosis right now in our society with how people behave and how we perceive things and what we think is right and wrong. And I do believe that there's also a moral fight between good and wrong. And if you want to look at the big picture of why this is happening, I've been hearing for years now about the Great Reset and the reset of the financial system and all these things. And I hear about it on CNBC now. They say it, Wall Street guys are talking about it now. But,
Mm.
you know, uh, I began to not even think about this or even wonder what's going on in the world. Really, what made me take a step back was when I first saw it was in October of 2019, just a few months before COVID was a thing to the world. Uh, President Trump, stood on the White House lawn on live television and he said, I'm ordering every American company out of China immediately. And when he said that,
Hmm.
instantly I saw the stock market do that. It was really amazing, the knee-jerk reaction to that. And following that, just several months later, after the trade war signing with China, which by the way, President Xi wasn't at the signing, all these red flags, then COVID happens. And then this crazy story that happened to me with my father happened, and, the marching and all this other stuff with the political stuff that happened. And, you know, uh, if I go back in time, I just remember, other countries like the sovereignty of China just being, another country doing their thing, and they have their own way of doing things. And, at the time, we did have a dialogue with them. And then once this whole COVID thing happened, it's like the world just turned itself off,
Mm-hmm.
and it was intentional. And then I heard about this reset and about the euthanasia of the elderly and the disabled and the ushering in of a new financial system. And
Right.
it's really just amazing where we're going with all of this. And I'm still very concerned. But, back to the whole hospital protocol thing.
Yeah.
So the former Fed Freedom Foundation was started by a former federal prosecutor by the name of Brad Geyer, who's a great guy. And he just walked away from his prosecutor job to start this. And we have over 1,000 documented stories with this organization. And I've been given a great honor to help them as being one of their social media directors. And we've grown a lot as an organization. But right now, it's about raising awareness and helping people connect the dots of why this is all happening and
Mm-hmm.
what's the future, what's the outcome or the goal of all of this. And really the goal is, in my personal opinion, from what I'm saying, is to decrease the population so whoever's left, so we can have an easier time managing and controlling
Right.
the checks and balances of your average man, your average Joe. And they want to end free commerce. They want to end your free speech. Thank God for Elon Musk. He's one of those people I think that's really, he didn't have to do what he's doing. So I love him for that. Um, but it's still a lot of uncertainty out there. And, until law
Well,
enforcement steps up and
yeah.
really starts to examine why all of these people that were wrongfully murdered or the wrongful deaths that happen, like Andrew
Well,
Cuomo has been indicted, we need
yeah.
to see more.
Well, let me ask you a question then. As long as you brought it up, and we can be controversial here. You can answer or not answer. Does it bother you that President Trump, and now he's got RFK under his wing, we'll see how that plays out, that neither of them talk about the hospital deaths, the ventilators? He actually brags about how many ventilators he had produced, one of which might
Yeah,
have been the one your dad died on, that they won't even touch the topic.
that's really upsetting to me. Yeah. So I was really hoping to see someone like President Trump or RFK really be more aggressive about this topic. I mean, it is definitely murder in the first degree. It's a serious problem. It's still going on. It can happen to
Well,
anyone.
the
And
bizarre thing is there, RFK's talking about, FD and C red dye in Fruit Loops. You want to talk about not as aggressive. I mean, it's the other end of the spectrum. There are people
yeah.
dying in hospitals. No one's saying a word about the CDC death protocol, which is really why we're here tonight, talking about your dad's death. And yes, in the larger scheme of things, and I'm fascinated by it too, I think the whole thing is about transfer of wealth, because Cuomo, as you mentioned, participated in so many other criminals across the nation, participated in the intentional murder of hundreds of, probably millions, many millions of our elderly, because you don't have to pay Social Security anymore. Let's start there. And you don't have to pay pensions and those mutual funds, that money. Here's so that's, it's important. It is part of the eugenics program. You've uncovered what Scott Schara has uncovered. But you now have people in office. You have a president-elect who's setting up his team, and a lot of them have already been very verbal, like RFK Jr., but they're not, including Trump, are not talking about COVID mRNA. J.D. Vance has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in factories to make more of it. And hospital murders by this CDC death protocol, PrEP Act, CARES Act, that's all still in place, which enabled these people to kill your dad not only without punishment, but with payment.
Yeah, and if you go back in time, it started with the tort reform and then Obamacare and then all these other things that
Yeah,
they've been sneaking past us. And so hearing Trump say, we got to make up a bunch of ventilators. I remember the look on my father's face when he said that. He's like, "That's not good. This is not good."
right.
So, um, this is there has to be an element there that maybe someone knew this was not going to be a good outcome, but we're going to do it anyways. And that's the part that actually upsets me with our
But
leaders,
but
you
now it's
know?
2024, and nobody's talking about the ventilators or the mRNA. I know that doesn't relate directly to your dad's situation, but it's all part of the crime under the PrEP Act. Medical countermeasures. It's masks. It's ventilators. It's the drugs that were used to punish your dad. Terrible.
Well,
And
here's
no,
what's interesting.
so
Yeah,
don't look toward them for, I'm saying, for relief. You're going to have to do what Scott Schara is doing, which is to go after them civilly, like criminal stuff civilly.
Is civilly, and eventually, I mean, I'm trying to get them criminal charges. These people do belong in jail. They need to be prosecuted.
Yeah.
If you do this,
Unfortunately, Andy, you're seeking help to get criminal district attorneys and things like that are already bought and paid for. That's why they're so quiet. That's why it's an uphill fight for you. That's why you need to do it in a civil matter. And if your lawyer's not willing to do it because he thinks he's not going to get paid enough, you need a new lawyer. He's giving you a gift of knowledge. I'm sorry, I'm outspoken.
no, thank you.
Because he's keeping you at a low level. He's keeping you and your mom at a low level. Because you would fight more if you had a lawyer who was willing to. And you I don't want to give you legal advice. I'm certainly not capable or qualified. But when I watch what Scott Schara has done and researched, and that model is to go after, you've got people that are easily nabbed as criminals. You get depositions on them. They're going to be, they left town. She got in her car, Grice, and ran away. They're going to be very tripped up in a deposition unless they just, refuse to answer.
And any attorney watching this interview, if you want to reach out to me and represent me, please.
That's fine. Where can they reach you, Andy? Let's go there. Where, if they wanted to reach you today, they could certainly come to me and I would pass them to you. My DMs are open on Twitter, but you have enough direct access, right? Tell them how they can.
Yeah, absolutely. I have my Google Voice number on my website, death@baylor.com. You can reach me out through that way. Andy.Kotsanis@formerfedsgroup.org is another way. Health Warrior 86 is my Twitter X handle. You can DM me. I'm very open to anyone that wants to counsel me and help me begin the process of doing this.
Say that again. Now we cut out a little bit, and I apologize on my end. You said you're open to anyone who'd be willing legally to counsel you, or if they're interested, maybe an offshoot of maybe Scott Schara's team. They might know.
Yes.
Okay, so, but everything is on death@baylor.com. All those additional ways to reach you, right, Andy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. In the last few minutes that we have with you, and I certainly want you to come back and update us on your progress. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about your revelation on the larger picture, or anything on behalf of your mom, Beverly?
Well, what's really it's the aftermath. This is the worst part of my story.
Okay.
The aftermath. So I almost had to institutionalize my mother.
Oh,
I had to stop everything in my life to basically, and to this day, still really be here for her.
oh,
And it's held me back a lot. But there's that, and then the process of grieving one parent, losing a parent this way, while trying to deal with the other one. And she screamed and cried every day for a year and a half. It was like the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan every day for. It was like it was. I never knew. It felt like it would never end. But so there was that, and then
mm,
having to explain to people in airports and grocery stores why my mother was being hysterical. So,
oh, wow.
and then also now my sister, right at the moment, we no longer speak because of me being public, and it's ruined my relationship with my sister, and um, a lot of things. And then there's a part of me that just feels like I died and came back to life is the best way to describe it. And before all of this happened, I didn't really have much gray hair. Now I have,
I don't mean to
I have a
laugh,
beard.
but yeah, I
I
mean,
look like Santa Claus now if I grow my beard out.
yeah,
So,
those are the things that are incalculable in terms of, 'cause you have to come to courts with, well, this is my damage and this number of dollars. The pain, the suffering, the aging, the stress, and you have to give your mom, my love and prayers. Tell her that, and you have a beautiful picture of your parents together here. On that, you had so much great stuff on death@baylor.com, and by the way, you have other victims and family victims that have gone through this. So it's really a rich center of resources. But this beautiful picture of them together, he's got the blue T-shirt on, and you could tell they were best friends and loves and all that. And so I understand. It's one thing, we all have to face death of our loved ones in this life, but most of us don't have to watch it and watch the crime in front of us and the torture of somebody we love that we can't get to. I totally understand your mom's and your horror.
yeah, it's really, I wish it just never happened. I wish I could just wave a magic wand and, like it
I
never
bet.
happened.
I
You
bet.
know,
I bet.
so,
Well, Andy, you absolutely have to hang in there. Lots of prayers will be coming your way, especially from my audience, and they completely understand. And if they can, is there a way to support you in this financially at the website? Just before we,
I should probably put up a GoFundMe or something, to keep, because I'm trying to keep getting the word out by doing posts on Twitter, and
sure.
I don't know what else to do other than that, and I'm going to keep doing that and exposing these people. But I will probably set something like that. But if you want to follow me at Health Warrior 86 on Twitter, go to I have it pinned on my profile, my website, Death at Baylor. Just share that, reshare it, share as much as you can. Go to Health Warrior 86 and just it's pinned at the very top of my profile. Just reshare that. Tell as many
Okay.
people about this story because it can happen to anyone.
It sure can,
Anyone.
Andy, but by the grace of God, it's still happening. And this is why your story is ever more important. And I'm sure your dad, a beautiful man, is looking down on you and very proud of what you're doing. On some level, knows you have a beautiful advocate in heaven. So hang in there. Hope you come back again. And thank you so much for doing the show with me tonight.
It was an honor. Thank you for having me, Dr. Ruby. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. All the best to you. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
So that's it for this edition of the Dr. Jane Ruby Show. I want to thank you all for being with me tonight. This has been my honor to get Andy's story out, to help him, yet another person. He's accomplished so much already. When you look at this website, deathatbaylor.com, and the fact that he's connected the same dots that Scott Shera has done, who's become a friend and a fellow warrior. I'm definitely going to put them together. Scott, if you're out there, I hope you see this, but I'll be contacting you later tonight or tomorrow. And let's say our prayers for the Kotsanis family. This is just yet another tragedy, and it's almost like it's happening in it's just a bizarre matrix, other universe thing, where doctors and nurses, the thing that gets me the most as a nurse practitioner who's taken care of patients in many different settings and including an ICU, I was always feeling like after I made sure the patient was stable, I would go out and spend some time with the family. They're hurting. Let's get our work done so the family can come in, because what was equally as important as the medicines we were prescribing and the equipment we were using was that the person they could feel their loved one's hand holding them with all these tubes and all over their face, and this tube down your airway. It's so uncomfortable, but that they had that hand. It's okay, honey. It's mom's here, or it's okay, honey. I'm here. Your wife, or your daughter, or whatever. And it just that feeling. Many of you know it yourself if you've been in any kind of situation like that. The voice of your loved one, hearing is the last to go. I had, when my mom was dying in hospice and she was in my arms, and people would, family would come in, and I'd say, tell her you're here. Let her hear your voice. These are the last senses, to go. But anyway, I get very emotional about it because this is unnecessary. It's atrocious. It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable. And I hope all of these people that we made famous tonight with their pictures and their names, I hope you all burn just a long, hot death in hell. And I'm going to make another statement. I am always available as a former nurse practitioner and a former nurse professor. I've taught nursing at the undergraduate and graduate levels. I would always consider testifying against these horrific, demonic enablers. Any of you nurses that stay in the hospital, that are still in these hospital systems, whether it's Baylor, Scott, and White, whether it's Texas Presbyterian, whether it is St. Elizabeth's up in Wisconsin, if you're still there, you are complicit. You are enabling the CDC death protocol to go on. You're making money at it, and you're enabling your institution to make money at it and to continue to kill people. Shame on you. And may you receive your just desserts from our Lord when you have to face him with your despicable, selfish, greedy crime. That's it for the show tonight. Thank you for being with me. Have a wonderful weekend. Find the joy. Be with your loved ones. Tomorrow is not promised to anyone. And pray for this family and so many more that have suffered in this way. Thanks for being with me. Good night, everyone.